Well, hello there.
Hey, friend, how are you?
I'm good. We took a little pause for 2 weeks, so it's good to be back.
My words of like Onchain never dies came back to bite me a little bit. But hey, the reset is good. Tons of stuff still happened, so it's not like it's just for lack of a better, like things just kept happening, and it's wild on-chain adventure stuff. So but it's good to be back. Good to see all the great stuff that's been happening, and just on-chain doesn't stop 24/7.
On-chain does not stop is right, and I feel like I have not stopped because this is my third live of the day, but that's okay. So apologies, folks, if you're sick of seeing my face, but we are back for the Superchain show after a small hiatus. We were off for 2 weeks, and we're also at a new time as well, so let's note that. But this is temporary. But if this is your first time here, this is the Superchain show, and we are part of Good News Onchain, now in our 98th week of programming. We're coming up on a big anniversary. Yes, September 30th will be our 100th week of uplifting and amplifying innovators, culture, communities, and most importantly for this show, the Superchain ecosystem and the folks that are building optimistically on these amazing new technology rails. So super happy to be here. We have a really exciting guest, but yeah, go ahead.
Though, that you've got 100 is like one marker, and then 4 weeks later is like a 2-year so you've got like lots to celebrate, and we've got lots to celebrate. That's an accomplishment to be able to do it for that long and continue. So
did you just do really good math?
52 weeks in a year, double it, so it's 104, I think.
Well, all right then.
If it's close to 100, I can do quarter math and then add the difference. That's it.
So what you're saying is that I should have
celebrated twice.
The 2-year rather than the 100th.
No, 100, and then a month later, 2 years.
Another
just keep it. And after that, 2 years and 1 month. No, I'm just kidding.
This is kind of like when people say, like, how old's your baby? And somebody goes, like, it's like 72 months. No.
That's too much. I mean, as someone who's had babies, like
3-year-old.
Once you get to 12, you start with years. And then after that, it counts as less. I don't walk around saying how old I am.
I think there's just, right, it's kind of ridiculous, but I think there's just something significant about the commitment and dedication that it takes to show up week after week after week.
For sure.
Week. And granted, there's been a couple that we didn't, we were on vacation or whatever, but like, it's a slog, and there's weeks where there wasn't really any good news. There was weeks where we were in a very much bear market, downtrodden kind of crypto Twitter cesspit, but we continued to show up, and because we found voices and just amazing people who were still showing up and doing amazing things. And I talked about that on the Good News show on Monday with Timepieces. Like, I just took a second to say, and let's reiterate it here, like, I wanted to give flowers to the artists out there, because the fact that artists are still showing up and still coming through with new ideas, regardless of what is happening with marketplaces shutting down and, a variety of kind of friction and conversations around there maybe not being a future for creatives on chain, which is ridiculous. Like, people continue to show up and create and innovate. So I just want to give them their flowers.
Totally. And I think that's even the weeks that there's seemingly no good news, then that's a chance for anyone to step up and be the good news, right? Like, if it doesn't exist, then create it. It's on you, right? So I think there's always something to highlight. As you said, like, some for better or worse of like market sentiment or things, like, we're here, just like, this technology is here to enable us to do more, and it doesn't mean that we just stand around and wait for somebody else to do it. Like, you can be the good news, and just happy to be a small part of the bigger picture that you're doing and providing for everybody.
Yep. All right. So we got a lot of news.
We do, and a guest.
Yeah. Folks, if you're watching this, please do retweet. Please do tag somebody who might need some good news today. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button. And let's just kind of jump right into it. So this first one, I don't know why this is scrolling. Let's make it not scroll. CBBTC. I don't know why it's scrolling. We'll fix it.
It's attention grabbing. It's a throwback to a marquee tag from the olden ages, the dark ages of the internet. With this one, although it's a mouthful to say. Oh, now we got an X in
There
there.
we go.
Super professional. 100 weeks
It's going really well.
No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Burn your friends. Hooray. I think the coolest thing to come out of this is it's taking something that already exists, and it just base is just relentless in trying to remove friction. Having Bitcoin be on the Bitcoin blockchain, super stable, super secure, and it's great. But for usability, sometimes moving it around, even just like swapping from one wallet to the other, sometimes sometimes the time delay makes it not as easy to use. And so what they've done is they've wrapped it onto a base token. And now, is that super magical and groundbreaking? No, we've been doing that for a while. But because it's on base, and because base has so many kind of pieces of the ecosystem already built out, they're making things seamless. It now makes that base be able to be used in a ton of interesting ways. And we've seen just in like the early, I think it's weeks, I think it's happened like a week or two ago that it officially kicked off, over 100 million in volume, right? So like most of the volume that's happening with Bitcoin is now happening on base. And so that's quite a feat. And people are using it on Uniswap and building like staking pools, so you can more easily, without having to touch an exchange, swap your Bitcoin, make it usable, right? So you can now still have it parked in Bitcoin, still ride the whatever volumes. Like, none of this is financial advice, but you can still, if you have Bitcoin, you want Bitcoin, wrapping it in base and being able to unwrap it whenever you want. Like, so it's still just as secure in that way. But now being able to stake it in DeFi stuff, just like any other base protocol stuff, or being able to Uniswap it or do all kinds of other things. It makes it where you can use that Bitcoin and it's not just sitting there. Or you can use it to make more Bitcoin in a way. So tons of things like that. I think it opens it removes a lot of friction. This is jumping the gun into like, it was just a nice segue. Someone built the base token store. I forget the full URL. I think I'll find it. Basetokenstore.com. And that lets you just connect a smart wallet, find any base token you want, including the Coinbase wrapped Bitcoin, and just purchase it with a couple clicks. Makes it super easy if you're already on chain. I do think there might be some fiat on-ramping coming to that too, but for right now, it's just like being able to switch your ETH right for Bitcoin if you wanted. And before, you had to find like ways to either intermediate, or that now it can all be, you can make smart contracts that now deal with Bitcoin, right? So it's kind of turning on through the wrapping of this, tons of utility, tons of use cases, and it's also removing a lot of the friction of like, oh, I've got a wallet and I want to have Bitcoin. Well, I have to have a separate Bitcoin wallet for that. Now you can just have all of your stuff in one kind of base supported wallet, and it's all there. So super cool to see.
Do you think that this is, do you think we're going to just see kind of this emergence of base as this kind of super dominant force in onboarding the next billion people?
I do think that it's currently the best suited for it. And I think before, in like the early days of like crypto, it was, oh, this is the Ethereum killer, or this is this, and it needs to destroy. I think base is actually kind of winning a lot of market share, because instead of saying like, we're better because we're faster, or we're better because we're cheaper, or whatever, they don't even say they're better. They're just saying we want to onboard we want everyone to win, and so we're building the tools to do it. And so things like the smart wallet, things like their gas payer like kind of thing, where if I'm doing a new DApp, I want people to try it like risk-free, I can say I'm going to put up to like $500 in gas, which can go a long way on base, where I just pay your gas, and so you're not even affected by gas, because it just happens, right? And so those kinds of things can get people to start to, like a coffee shop can start to run fully on base and onboard people right in the shop. There's with a smart wallet, you don't need to download an app. You don't need to do anything. You just set up the wallet once. It's got a passkey on your phone, and then you just fund it through ways that just continuously are starting to pour out. And really, you can just jump into base, and you can off ramp just as easily back into fiat if you need to. And so you're starting to see like the pieces are there. Now it's up to like kind of the folks to say, oh, this is more valuable, right? Like, I want to start a coffee company, but like sometimes people will do coffee and then buy like a whole office order, and the office gets something mixed up, and so they do a chargeback, and so I lose tons of money, and I have to wait 60 days to get my money back. Like, as a small business, that's tying up all my cash flow. With crypto, there's no backsies, there's no whoops. Like, of course I can send things back, but you can't automatically claw it back. There's no middleman. It's transaction between you and me, my store and you. Like, it's just way more transparent. It's way more everything.
It's interesting that you raised that, actually, Brock, because I was just working on an article about friendly fraud. I don't know whether anybody's familiar with that term, but when I had my previous business, I had an events business for 10 years. There was this phenomenon that they had a term for. It was called friendly fraud, where folks would purchase something through PayPal, whether that was, in our case, it was a ticket to an event. We would scan them. We knew they attended the event. We had them checking in via Eventbrite, it was at that time. And then after the event, claiming they had no idea what that charge was and disputing that charge and saying they'd never attended that event. And that would happen, and we would lose thousands of dollars worth of business, because instantly what PayPal would do in that situation was trust the consumer and immediately
fight to claw it back. Yeah.
Refund the consumer. And then not only are you then on the hook for the loss, which you've delivered the service that you've promised to deliver the client, but you're also on the hook for the charges that are associated with that chargeback as well. So
yeah, like a $30 fee depending on banks. Like it's where like you, especially if the ticket price is $1, where like because they gave you $1 and clawed it back, you now owe $30. Like so that all of this like business, it's just cost of doing business goes away.
Think of that at scale. Like we were a relatively small business, but you know we were doing 8,000 heads a year, so like maybe 4% of that was charged back. But you know, if you put that at scale with some other businesses, that was a part of their bottom line that was being eaten up by so-called friendly fraud.
Right. Yeah, and that's just one of many things. Like another thing that someone surfaced, I think, was like paycheck loans are notorious getting like 372% on average is what they make off of like your like putting that on chain and being able to turn that into like a DeFi solution can make it to where it's more win-win and less poachy kind of in a way that makes sense when someone has hardship, you know, getting loans, getting micro loans. Like we're seeing all kinds of things happen. And so it's just getting easier and easier. So like your question was, does Base have like what it takes to become a super? I think the Superchain does, and Base is just pushing in so many directions on that. And where they're falling short is an opportunity for another team to come and push in the same way. And then everyone kind of wins by default for that. So I think that's where it is the Superchain level instead of just particularly Base. Base definitely is a team of rock stars, and they're hiring now to continue to go even faster. But I think they're also realistic in their goals too. They're like less than 1% of people are on chain. So like the odds are stacked against us. And so it's not going to take just like the tech side. It's going to take the people who are having struggles in business, having struggles in like social networks, social like gatherings, like all these things to surface and find better ways to do it on chain where, you know, we don't need 1 million people just like siphoning off of the funnel of the two people that are doing business together. It can just be more direct. It can be better for everybody. So
quick touch on this one, because I know this was not in our lineup, but a quick reminder that the Sunnies are coming up. Applications are now closed. Optimisn did announce that anybody who submitted a project to the Sunnies will also get access to analytics. Interesting to see what kind of analytics we're going to get access to. So very excited about that. So keep an eye out. I think it's going to be, well, it has to be late September now. We're already in mid-September. So late September to early October, the Sunny Awards will be coming up. And that is a Superchain native awards ceremony. What else do we have? Should we do a little FUD busting here?
Sure.
We haven't done it in a while. Okay, so let's get your take on this. A little bit of a spicy take. Could have been misinterpreted, but Dan Romero, founder of the Purple app of Farcaster, said one of the reasons that well, I don't want to incorrectly contextualize this, but essentially the running headline was "There's no interesting content." So Toady Hawk had a really interesting take and has taken some interesting action here. He said that there's been a lot of hullabaloo recently around Farcaster allegedly lacking interesting content, all stemmed from a cast from Farcaster founder Dan Romero that was mostly taken out of context. When pressed about why his app wasn't growing faster, he replied, "Not enough interesting content." Thoughts?
Yeah, surprising thoughts. I do think that I left Twitter, and for some things that I'm doing, some of my community is still splintered and still on the Bird app. And so I went back a little bit. And while there's been so much drama and chaos and things that just like bickering back and forth, or people like wailing about huge losses on gambling. Like it's just a nonstop thing. And so like the content there, in my opinion, is not much better. But I do think what at least my interpretation of that is people use an app like TikTok because there's funny videos, because there's like educational videos on something, like anything you want to know. Some insider, like a plumber, is like, here, look, here's how you fix it. Like you can just do it yourself. That kind of knowledge is being shared there, and so people flock there. And so I think what it is mostly for Farcaster is, if I'm on Twitter and at first glance Farcaster looks like a Twitter clone but Web3, that's not a value add. I think there's layers to get below it, and I've taught like a bunch of classes on like why it's different and why I think it's better. But like you need someone to kind of explain it. That's one way, and that's the slow approach, where you're kind of like giving a small seminar or a pitch as to why someone should use this over other. And you can use both. I'm not saying you can't, but why you should start putting effort into being on Farcaster or a decentralized social media network. But I think really what's missing is Farcaster is the place for blank, like why, and it's a place for what. And I think that's where that interesting content is. And we need folks from all walks of life. I think the folks that have joined, not saying they all fit in the bucket, there are folks from all over, and that's great. But we need to continue to grow that. And so we find that kind of, not niche, but we find that kind of content, and we find like the culture that we really want it to be. And then it becomes Farcaster's a place for fun. Farcaster's a place where this happens. Like I think we're missing that piece, and whether if you're wording it as interesting content, but it's like an interesting or a compelling reason as to why you would go and seek out Farcaster over more traditional social networks. And there's valid reasons as to why right now, but because there's work and effort and investment of like taking the time to listen to why and having it really sink in and go, oh, and then also seeing that it's like a slow start. Like it's not just like, you won't get very far if you're just shouting at the sky on Farcaster. It's more about finding like groups and finding topics and going in that way. And it's a little bit slower of a process, but the enrichment and the value is far superior. The engagement's far superior once you find the folks that you're after. But if you don't do that, then it feels like it's an empty hallway, right? And so it needs that. It's missing that Farcaster is the place for blank to really get people to go, oh, I do want that, so I'll go there. That's what we're missing, so that it becomes more of a run and flock to place or a destination instead of, it's just like Twitter, but a little bit different.
It's those cozy corners that Dan talked about at FarCon, building the corners where gravitating and building kind of cozy corners of the internet where your people reside, and building outwards from there. And it is a little bit of a kind of a tip on the head of what we're used to with social media. This idea that those that were here first are the ones that continue to be amplified and rewarded, like on face value, that really is what it looks like. But like you said, there is work to do. It's not just kind of show up and expect, because you have a big following somewhere else, that you can then just kind of translate that over. You can't. You do have to participate and contribute. Like
it's showing up to a party that is fun and exciting, but there have been people that have been there for hours, like mingling and meeting people, and so they are elevated because they learned the game and have been playing it for a while, and so there is some catch up. I also think that you don't get that immediate dopamine spike that you might get of like you post a video on TikTok and it's like, I'm world famous, because their algorithm just boosts the heck out of your first, so you're like, this is a rush, and now I'm like, I don't think that happens, and so. Without getting like looking for that familiar dopamine hit that we get from some other social media networks, like when we get like something to kind of blow up a little bit, even if it's like 50 people, and then seeing like, oh, this is like, I might get like 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 or 100 maybe for like an average post on Farcaster. I think it's just the dopamine doesn't hit as hard. And so again, I think that's another thing, because there's not games, because we all own it, because it's like it's more chill. Then we need that niche. We need that thing of like what makes Farcaster a destination, and to understand why. Well, I'm not getting a dopamine hit. I'm not getting this. Like, why should I be here? And so like that's the missing piece, I think. And it's going to come from getting more folks in, having people more like create more, and then from like the word builder, I think is true, but also I think the non-builder builders, I'm actually more bullish on getting onto the platform, because they're the ones that are like, I wish this would happen. And then now the builders can build that. Like we need the idea folks. We need the people that feel the friction and not cry about it, like where they're just like, but like the people that surface the stumbling blocks that the devs and the people that have been in crypto long enough to just like let it go. So we can smooth all that paths over. So it just becomes again like a thing where people flock there and it feels great. And so it's dialing in that experience. dialing in how people can find those cozy corners faster, and then dialing in that value that you would seek out that only exists on Farcaster and why people should go there.
Yeah. All right. No more flood busting. Big premiere last night. We had the premiere of the Ethereum story. Exclusive premieres happened all over the world, including at Token. Is it 2049?
I believe so, yeah, in Singapore.
Why is it 2049?
I don't know.
None of us have answers. Anyway, this is now.
You go when you find out.
Yeah, exactly. Answers on a postcard, please. This is now streaming, I believe, either today or tomorrow. Vitalik and Ethereum story. We'll be watching that hopefully over the next couple of days, and we'll try to give our download next week. But if you have takeaways, come share them with us. We want to hear from you. So what else? There's some rounds happening. There is a purple round that is closing in 3 days. I think there's 10 ETH up for grabs. So if you've built anything on Farcaster where you feel you've contributed to the Farcaster ecosystem, definitely make sure you visit Purple on Farcaster, the Purple page or group, and share there to be eligible.
Was it if you made like a frame? Does that count?
Yes, I believe so.
I wonder if I should submit my welcome frame, like the welcome to Farcaster.
Absolutely submit everything and all of the things.
Everyone should submit everything too.
It's hard to keep up, but I will say that I love the addition of discovery on the rounds.wtf page, giving them their flowers for doing that, because it gives people an opportunity to know what's out there, what's trending, what's kind of coming up towards a close. And yes, definitely worth a check out. That's rounds.wtf. If you're not already doing it, get rewarded for building in real time. So that's very exciting.
Speaking of enhancements, Uniswap now supports smart wallets. And so if you set up like a smart wallet, some things of the ecosystem are still like expanding and kind of like glowing up to support smart wallets, which I think is going to be a big step forward for a lot of folks, because it just makes it so easy for a normal person to get into on-chain stuff. But now Uniswap's supporting those smart wallets. Just makes it that much easier to swap between things. You can do that from wallets, but going directly into Uniswap and kind of being able to tinker and see like what's what, instead of just taking whatever the wallet gives you, I think does give you a little more power. So yeah.
That's fun. That's very exciting. What about this base token store? Do we want to? I can do a screen share. Should we talk about this?
I mean, we mentioned it before. I think showing just how easy it is to grab some like CB Bitcoin. Not saying you have to buy it, but you could literally buy like $1's worth if you wanted to. So navigate into that website. You just connect your wallet, and you can do that even after adding stuff to the cart. You just search for what assets you want to buy. So CB, BTC. Are you sharing right now? Or are you pulling it up?
I'm trying. Here we go. There we go.
Yeah,
the base tokens.
Very clean. There's a referral thing too, so you can like refer friends. And you mint an NFT, and then when you refer, some of the usual suspects, DGen's on there. But if you just search for CB, BTC, and like the search bar in the middle, it will come up, and then it'll show you like a little graph too of like how it's been performing.
So we can search DGen here.
Yeah.
You can click on DGen. Look at all these.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah. But again, like the easiest way, if you wanted to buy Bitcoin right now, you can just do CB BTC in the search, and it pulls up because now it's a base token. And you can see the volume, you can see like the current price. And if you just click add to cart, it just says, okay, here's $1, and you can up to however many dollars you want, and you connect your wallet, and then just sign the transaction, and boom, you have Bitcoin. So wow. It makes it super easy. Like, yeah, if you have a wallet, you can buy Bitcoin.
That's very exciting. Good stuff.
Yep.
All right, what else is happening in the ecosystem that we're excited about? Anything else that's on your mind this week? I know we have a special guest coming through.
Yeah, whenever the guest shows up, just cut me off. But
yeah.
I've been excited to see like a lot of stuff that, again, it seems like we're just like base super maxis, but really it's everybody's weighing on Superchain because of it. But some of the ideas they're floating about this new wallet, so like the smart wallet is great, but like what if you could enhance it even more? They've talked about like trying to get double tap to pay for crypto stuff through Apple Pay. And so the more that these things kind of come online, they're doing it in a way where developers can just, like, that's something that I can just set aside as a developer, and it's already built, and I can just focus on the cool thing about my app. And I think by doing that, by offloading a lot of this stuff and unifying it to where it's just easy, it just works. You're also creating like a user interface and user experience that's just comfortable across all of the apps. So by default, all of these like other, like whether I'm making an app or somebody else making an app, it should, certain parts, the important parts should be somewhat familiar. And so it makes it easier for if one takes hold for the others. And then you're also seeing them work on this like discovery kind of like, I don't want to say like ad agency type stuff, but you can submit if you're building something, and then they'll start to surface things that kind of at random or when it's timely across like the dashboard for the smart wallet or the dashboard for other places, inside Rainbow Wallet even. So just kind of like getting all these folks to kind of join forces and push different types of content so that they can surface things that are potentially like the next thing that'll get a lot of people on chain. So super cool to see that. And then I know you were talking this morning, I think, with some folks from that gaming platform. Was there anything cool or any takeaways there?
Yeah, GameSwift. So, I've been working with them for a couple of months, helping out with some of their ambassador programming. And just, it's exciting, especially as somebody who's not really a gamer, but like seeing this opportunity for community growth, for innovation, but like fostering this kind of, in the same way that the Superchain ecosystem does, like fostering this idea of building out loud and building together and building through innovation. So that's really cool. They have over 100,000 active users.
Wow.
So they're building, a thriving community that just mirrors kind of my vision of what I think this space can be, right? It's not just about entertainment. It's not just about technology, but it's about deeper connection and collaboration so that we can actually create things that people really want to participate in. And, obviously in this case, it's gaming. And, with what you and I are building with Help, it's fundraising, whatever vertical it touches. I think just having that community spirit and collaboration as the North Star and guiding light is awesome. So yeah, very exciting. And they're working with Fetch AI. They're working with some major IP that can't be announced yet, but like building and extending intellectual property through gaming and using AI tools and bringing in the creators to actually participate in building story and lore. Like that is exciting.
Yeah, that's the stuff that I get excited about. With like, not going to show my project, but like,
show it,
do
it.
No. But getting back into like that world building, I think is almost in a way meta, because I think the on-chain, we're building a world right now together collectively, no matter how active or passive you are in participating with that. But then being able to do something that's entertainment on top of that, or surprise and delight on top of that. There's just so much going on that I'm glad that we get to kind of distill it down for folks. But even beyond that, there's so much extra stuff that I think that's coming down the pipeline that is just going to continue to not only make it easier for people to get on chain, but to participate with like what makes them special and what lights them up. And the technology is almost going to start taking a backseat, similar to like early days of email. But now it's like I can send tons of email, or I don't even use email. I use text or Discord or all these other things. Like all of it's just opening up, and we're moving kind of everybody, instead of making it to where everybody produces content so that one person can win and take away 90% of it. We're doing the reverse, where we're going to take 90% and distribute it across everybody equally. And so I think that's the way that it should be. It's creating more than we consume, kind of thing.
I also think that just gaming as a term is going to become outdated and archaic pretty soon, because I think the idea of like what gaming summons when you think of gaming is like, somebody sitting in front of a screen and, with their controller, and they're completely consumed in this experience. And it's a very isolated experience, apart from perhaps the people that they're collaborating with. But what we're seeing now is gamification touches every aspect of entertainment, right? Like it is a part of everything that we're doing. You could even say that, a lot of what we see on SocialFi is gamification, right? It's farming for airdrops, engagement. So I think that just like removing that kind of assumed idea of what gaming is going to really just open up the possibilities of who considers themselves a worthy participant in those ecosystems. I was at a conference recently, and there was a lady who had like a 10-year-old daughter, and she'd said something to her daughter about well, you're a gamer. And her daughter was like, what do you mean? I'm not a gamer. She's like, yeah, you are. You're in Roblox all the time. She's like, that's not gaming, Mom. Like, that's just hanging out with my friends at the mall. Like, that's their social squares. And so we're in this really transitional time, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's gaming almost has like a little bit of a stigma to it, and for the folks that think when you think gaming, you're still thinking is someone like just glued to a TV or throwing their controller because they're raging out. And you have to look at it more like Pokemon Go. I think like even though that's not like the hottest game right now, there's still tons of people that play it, but like that activated people going outside, going to certain businesses, going to all these things. And so moving that on chain, where it's again not even one company, but it's an open platform where a business can create an asset. Hey, come fetch this thing and get whatever. And not that everything needs to be complicated and you have to have like a million. The wallet really is like your utility, like your Swiss Army knife of everything, right? Like similar to like a lot of people that have iPhones and you can like load all your cards into like that one screen. Your wallet is kind of that, and you can have NFTs that guarantee you access to things. You can have certificates of all kinds of things and proof that things happen, prove that you were physically at the location, and you now get this thing. And I think that starts to build layers and layers of commerce, but more peer-to-peer or business to person, instead of having to have like these huge entities that kind of like own it and extract. It can just be ways of supercharging, surfacing people's passions and the products and the services that they offer, and being more, as much as like it's gaming, you think it's isolating, it's actually, especially now, more connecting than anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a special guest here, so let's get him in. Please welcome Mr. Chris Carella. Hello, friend. It's good to see you.
Hey guys, I was just tuned in for maybe the last 15 minutes or so. Was enjoying the gaming chat.
Are you a gamer, Chris?
I am. There's a PS5 sitting next to me that doesn't get as much love since I became a dad.
Facts, same. I missed a whole like generation of the game that I was playing from having my two children. But missed is like, but I used to play Overwatch, and then now there's like Overwatch 2, and even that, who knows where it's at now. But my PS5 has just kind of sat since then. So.
Well, I want to give a big official welcome to Mr. Chris Carella. If you're not following him, make sure you go follow him immediately. Co-founder of Purple DAO and a dedicated Farcaster builder with an FID of 472. Chris is an OG on the Purple app. Before cool, right? So big welcome to you, Chris. I know you've got a lot of exciting things that you're working on, but we're just really glad that you were able to take some time and join us today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Great to be here. I think more so than my low FID is that I have the longest streak of people consecutively casting. And I don't know what the number is, but I know it's above 700 days straight.
Wow.
Which is better than your 100 weeks of recording this show.
That is, yeah, you beat us.
Thanks for being here. Bye.
Did you catch the comparison to like people who like say their babies are 85 months old? Like,
no, that's so funny. I missed that totally, because then I was like looking for the calendar invite and stuff. That's pretty funny.
Congratulations. That's quite a run. Like, is there anything like just top level takeaways of what you've learned from that experience of being part of this growth system?
First of all, I'm shocked that I have a long streak. I did have a child in the middle of that. I did spend like 3 nights sleeping in the hospital, so that I somehow was still casting from the hospital. My big thing is that I still believe strongly in decentralized social. It was kind of like I initially was brought to Warpcast not because it was such a great app or because all the great people, but it was like Twitter was doing, this is pre-Elon, but Twitter was doing some things that I didn't quite like, and saw the need for a decentralized social. And so that was like passion number one. And then, of course, found that app. It's been like high quality since day one. Like a lot has changed, but what hasn't changed is that like it is a top experience, consumer internet experience. You use a lot of other crypto products that don't feel that way. So then I felt like, okay, this is for real. I found a home. And then from there, it's just been a journey. And the space has changed, and I think this is a good thing. The other thing is that growth has always come in these spurts, like it's almost like stepwise, and I think people are like waiting for this like prolonged exponential growth. That just hasn't happened that way in the last 2 years. It's like something happens and there's a spike and then it levels, and then something happens and then there's a spike and then there's frames and then and so kind of just waiting for what the next spike is. But yeah, I think that's it. I mean, what kind of other just kind of advice and feedback, but yeah, I would just say hang in there. It's been super rewarding. It's been like financially rewarding because you're in the place where all the alpha is. Meme coins aside, there's no meme coin alpha there. But you're like in the place where all the alpha is. You get involved in all the projects. You get a lot of good feedback. You get a lot of people trying your projects. So I think it's just a super valuable place to be, even while it's still pretty small.
And in terms of just building, like, you've been a part of Nouns, you founder of Charmverse, obviously early Farcaster adopter, and now this new venture. Like, talk to us. What were you doing pre-blockchain? Like, what was your journey before? What brought you?
Yeah, cool. So the same and different. So I've been building consumer internet products for 20 years, either as a co-founder, always as head of product, often the first employee. Was a part of, in the early days, was a part of GroupMe, which I've eventually sold to Microsoft. And so I worked on a bunch of that stuff. Then also had just developed an art practice in the real world. I was living in New York, showed a little bit in galleries, had a studio space. We did a lot of studio visits. In fact, these are my paintings behind me. And so was doing that kind of stuff and consumer internet and physical art. And then I really caught I'll just say then leading into like 2020, I was leading a startup studio. And so I was the head of product of a startup studio. We launched 2 new startups every year. I wound up being the head of product for each of those startups for 1 year. And then if it had success, we would hire a head of product and replace me. And so I was doing a lot of startup studio work. As a studio, we got really into the niche of like consumer packaged goods. And so there's actually something you'll find in Targets called Bellway, which is like a clean or organic, I think it's organic these days, a clean organic fiber product, kind of with like the millennial branding. And we were kind of riding that like millennial packaged goods wave. I became a Shopify expert in the process. I didn't really love that. Like I like to build software, not configure software. So we were I was coming towards my end of that startup studio anyway, thinking like, I don't really want to ship more plastic around the world. There must be something else, right? And then I'll just say the crypto part of that journey was very early in mining Bitcoin, like when you could still do it on your laptop.
Wow.
When there was a Bitcoin faucet where you would show up to a website every day and you click a button and you got 1 Bitcoin. But unfortunately, so got out of that before it was valuable. So, regrets. Then like kind of tuned out, was doing kind of the mobile stuff, some gaming stuff. And then really tuned back in for crypto kitties. That was the first time. So I was always like crypto curious and I loved it and believed in technology. And then with my Bitcoin experience, just never actually thought it was going to take over the world. I didn't think this was going to be the next internet currency. So tuned out, came back in for crypto kitties, was like, oh, cool. Someone's building apps on crypto. Crypto kitties was terrible. If anyone was there, it was just like a really like you would buy a kitty and you would get it like 6 hours later if you were lucky. It just wasn't ready. None of the scaling existed on a DL1, let alone we didn't have L2s. But tried really hard to get into crypto, was like, this is it, And I felt like in that, all I could find were like these PhD in math jobs. Like all of the positions in crypto back then like required a PhD in math. So continued on with my consumer internet journey, and then this sort of brings me up to 2020. The pandemic happens. I'm sort of like looking for the next thing. I discover NBA Top Shot. And for all of its flaws, and honestly, it's still a great product. I was just blown away by like, oh, you can build world-class products on top of crypto now. It is ready for me. And so quit the startup studio, just did a bunch of independent sort of experimentations and learning in crypto. Then was tweeting a lot about NFTs and culture and NFTs and streetwear and graffiti and NFTs and all this stuff. And then Tezos reached out to me and said like, hey, we are just writing the NFT spec. We we know your work from the past. We'd love for you to come on and work with us. So then joined Tezos. I think technically January 2021. Oh no, it was like in that pandemic time frame where time is a big blur, Joined Tezos, kind of helped finish. They wrote the spec, kind of helped finish the NFT spec, product managed their first minting product. As a result, became the first artist to mint to Tezos mainnet. Just mostly as a result that like our team had built the product, but no one had tested it on mainnet yet. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. Was at Tezos for about a year, and then we're like in peak bull market. And I actually didn't like the last bull market. I left because I thought it was like a little bit frothy. The people were not quite right. The entrepreneurs I was meeting and the people raising money, it was all not right. And so spent almost a year, a little bit less probably, back going into some data science work and some Web2 work. It was like data science around music. And then the bear market hit, and I saw all of the carnival barkers leave. And I was like deeply passionate about crypto at this point. And so as soon as the bear market happened, I was like dying to get in. In that meantime, when I went, I started really hard on NFTs and did a bunch of professional work in NFTs. And when I left professionally to go back to data science, got really into DAOs. Like that's my nights and weekends was crypto, and it was DAOs. And first it was friends with benefits, and I would go to their parties, and I went to their Art Basel events, and was super taken by it. Then found Nouns DAO, and then from there just like the world of DAOs. And so when it was time to like turn my attention back to crypto, I knew I wanted to do DAO work. And our friend introduced me to Alex Poon, who's the CEO and co-founder of Charmverse, and we really hit it off. And we built Charmverse, and Charmverse started as DAO software. We were like a DAO operations platform, Notion for DAOs. We then found product market fit in the grant space, and so a lot of major grants are now running on Charmverse. And then as the Charmverse team was just thinking about like, okay, cool, what's next? And we've learned so much from DAOs. Our passion, which also leads me to like this whole 2020 arc, is the passion of our team is the future of work. And then crypto being such an obvious platform for the future of work. And then us going deep into DAOs as potentially the future of work. And then next thing being brands as a potential way that the future of work looks like. And now have just launched a wait list, but soon we'll launch a product called the Scout Game, which is sort of our next take on that. And before we go into that, I'll just say my art practice went from paintings to NFTs, and especially in the pandemic when art was just terrible because you couldn't go to galleries or people couldn't visit my studio even. But even the other artists in my studio wouldn't show up because we were all so afraid of COVID, but still showed up. But started my NFT practice then, and just continued with it. There's pros and cons of physical art versus NFTs, but being able to like have my art appreciated by everyone in the world, like just started feeling really good. Where my previous art practice was like a dozen people liked it, one person bought it, was lucrative, but I didn't have that kind of internet scale of things. So still very much practice art of all kinds, but I mint a lot of NFTs now. I'm all over Zora. There you go. That's kind of my brief.
What a story!
I love it. It's oddly very similar to my path as well. So it's obviously some differences, but like my favorite part so far of the on-chain journey has been this last bear cycle, because I think, as you said, there was like a bunch of snake oil folks, and now it's like from like onboarding side, things are just clicking into place where it doesn't take like I have to go watch 10 hours of video to understand things. Like it's just getting easier and easier, and there's value that's being kicked out, and the rate in which things can be built because we're building together collectively. Of like, oh, I built this thing, and like here you can use it, and like it's almost like the magic of like reinventing. Not that we're reinventing open source software, but just there's a new resurgence in a lot of things that can just empower everybody to do, like, don't build this 18 times over, like here, use this one, or let's improve this one, and then everyone uses that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a little bit of a meme that like we're building too much infra, and when are the end user apps coming? And I get it, and I feel it, but man, the infra is getting really good. Like, like I feel like we're pretty close, 6 months away from this just being a better way to use the internet. I think some of the things I'll tick off are Coinbase Smart Wallet, or these kind of smart wallets in general. But the Coinbase Smart Wallet, it feels like magic, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It feels like it's not done. It feels like it's not even beta yet, and we're out there using it. But like when you use it, you're like, oh my God, this has to be this way, right?
It's the way.
where it does feel really polished is, and I don't know if this is Privy. Privy's also doing really good work in this space, but like when you sign up for something like Rodeo, or if you've tried the Farcaster app Kiosk and they have these embedded wallets, the very early phase of embedded wallets felt super clunky, and I had to like send money, and actually they wouldn't even let me look at the app unless I sent money to it, which I really hate that pattern. Now these apps just feel so super smooth. So I think it's that, and then the Superchain is doing work around interoperability, and that's going to be better than more magical than people imagine. Where it's like, hey, I want to spend USDC. It happens to be on Base. I'm on ZoraNet right now, or Mode. It doesn't matter. I can spend my Base ETH, right? My wallet doesn't care. I don't have to like switch my wallet to those things. I mean, that's going to be like some next level crypto experience. For those of us who have struggled, and started with MetaMask, I think these things it's about to get really, really easy to use, much better. And then, while I do feel the dregs of being real deep in this bear market, and we like continue, I feel like there's another wave of us losing some soldiers here because, we're deep in it, and startups cash dry up, and you need to find a way to live. But Polymarket feels like such a beacon of hope. And, a lot of the people who use Polymarket don't even know they're using crypto. And so there's a lot of stuff coming together where I'm really bullish on the next 6 to 12 months of us starting to have like this consumer grade breakout experience.
Yeah, I agree. Switching gears back to like Firecaster for a second, because we were talking about Dan's tweet about like no interesting people. When I first came to the platform, the thing that I found was, one, it was more authentic than I'd ever felt before, and I really I'm just crave authenticity of like no, we're just people instead of like art. Like there's like, I'm not saying there's no arguments, but like I think because it's so cozy corny based and like finding your people. Not that everyone collectively agrees. I think there's a lot of discourse, but it's actually like discourse instead of just screaming at the sky at each other.
Yeah.
But my second thing that I realized is it felt like it was a magical toy box of like frames. Like when I joined, Degen was just popping off, which I was like, I don't know what this is, but hooray. And it like somehow turned into like magic internet money for me, and that was sweet. But then like frames coming out, I was like, this is magic. And then actions I think are magic, but I think the way that we surface them still needs work. Frames, I still think we need like better bookmarks for frames, because frames, the life cycle of a frame, I was building tons of games and all kinds of things into frames, and it was fun.
Cool.
But the life cycle is as much as you can scroll. Now it's dead. Right?
100%.
And so we need a way of like making those more where like, oh, I want to join the game today, so I got to click this, and now here's my frame, and I do stuff. The DMs with frames, I think, is another unlock that's pretty cool. But like, what's the next? Like, do you feel like we're still missing something in Dan's conversation? Like, what's the next in your opinion? And like, I just like to ideate too. But like, what's the missing Lego piece that could unlock the next bunch of users?
I love this question. I think of the Lego pieces we have as casts and DMs, although DMs are pretty weak because there's just not that much. You can't do as much as we would like to be able to do with it. There's casts and DMs and channels are undergoing a change that I'm pretty excited about, right? And then there's the composer actions, which are really great. If you've ever used Ponder's composer action, where you make polls, or I love the Nook composer action, where you can like rate products and rate songs and stuff like that. And then cast actions, like you said. But today, I saw someone posted their paragraph. They wrote a piece on paragraph. Eric wrote, he posted it. I clicked the open button or read button, in the frame that I always click, and then it sends me out to the website. And I saw a mini app. So there is at least one mini app is live on Warpcast as of like, I just discovered this like an hour ago. And so on mobile, I literally, it's the same paragraph frame, but now when I click read, it slides up and you stay in Warpcast, and now you have a web view and you have the whole blog post right there. So
and you can also use forms too. You can use forms there.
Absolutely.
So like commerce now becomes like possible. Like
way easier
to do it for digital, like minting an NFT. Like what if I want the shirt? Like that was really cumbersome to do. And I was ideating of like, what if everyone had like a code that they could like store to, like locked away, and then you just enter in your short code, and then that's your address, but you're not sharing it. Like, but this like just being able to enter in a form that like even if you're using it in the browser, like Google can pick up like an autocomplete. Like it turns commerce on through the feed. I think that's super powerful. But yeah,
so I think it'd be really cool. I think like then my second way to answer that same question is I do think we have a lot of the tools, and then I think it's a little bit about experimenting and figuring out how to use them. And like I think Moxie was kind of to me like a real eye opener or like a product to study, and that it was all within WorkCast, and so they use all of the tools. And then sometimes it's frustrating to not have a website. And now there's a bunch of third-party websites, and their own website got a lot better. But like if that had launched with like a mini app, that would like solve that missing web component. Jason didn't do web stuff because he, in his experience with Farcaster, it's like hard to send people back and forth and back and forth. So he just wanted to keep everyone where they were. If you can keep everyone where they are, and then a mini app slides up, and then you can have like a more a bigger experience, that could be really interesting. So I think just to tie back to the not enough interesting content, which is really what he said, not enough interesting people, and I think now we have to figure out, and then like I'll just not that I don't even know Dan to be started, so I'm not in any way defending him. He has done a really good job with our community in the last 2 years, but I think what he meant is there is great content on Warpcast. There is not enough great content on Warpcast to compete with Twitter, right, or to compete with Blue Sky or these things. And so that's how I took about it. And so the question is how we get more great content. And crypto's covered. Like if you're into crypto, there's no better place to be than Warpcast and the crypto adjacent stuff, network states, libertarianism, like all of the crypto adjacent stuff is pretty covered there. What's not covered are people's other interests, or what's not covered in like a meaningful way, or like even more specifically, what's not differentiated. And so like you can have there's an NBA channel and people talk about NBA on Warpcast, but like NBA Twitter is better, right? It's like that is where the journalists are, they're breaking alpha, the players are there. There's like a lot of interesting stuff about it. So just coming back, how do we how do we onboard new communities or like people's interests, and how do we use these Lego blocks to make something really great, right? And the final thing I'll add is the notion of third-party clients. Like anyone can build a client on Warpcast, and I think there are a couple of really good clients, but I know like people have different feels about this, and it's actually very hard to compete with Warpcast. So that is the truth, But a lot of the times I think like, okay, we have all of these Lego blocks, and I'm really into gardening, and I want to come in and like build this great gardening experience with composer actions. I can post pictures of my plants. I can maybe even like look up things and then post about it. So composer actions can help people create better content. There's cast actions, which can help people act on this content. But am I going to bring the gardening community into a place where people are talking about cryptocurrency, where there's an algorithm that is like feeding them that stuff, even if they don't care about it? And so it almost feels like, what if we had some really great client that you could white label for different communities that can stay in their channel, stay in their lane, have the algorithm tuned to them? That can be one way to bring on more people into the network. And then maybe I'll just pause there. But anyway, yeah, I think a lot about this.
I think you're hitting the nail. Like
Right.
Rachel and I talk all the time, and I think I have to talk myself daily out of not making a music Farcaster app, because I think just a layer of player using like NFT, like music NFTs to where it plays as easy as Spotify, it connects on, like having that, and then using frames and stuff to empower artists to build that relationship with fans. Music's just a passion of mine. So like for me, it's a stupid thing, but I think walking it up higher, you're pitting on like composable social, where it's I instead of making just a channel, I can design my own app, and it's the swarm of mini apps built on Farcaster that not only sells the idea of how Farcaster is different, but also like brings those niches in a way that's not to be exclusion. Like you can go and search whatever, but it starts to like automatically pull in related content, or it's within people that have used the same thing. It's keeping those bubbles like together, and you can pop the bubble and go out, but it's by default bubbled. I think that could be interesting. Yeah.
And then I'll just say like one more Lego block that we need, although like it can be built, is onboarding people to the network. And so to onboard people through Warpcast is challenging if you're trying to do something else. To make everyone pay $5 or whatever the going rate is can be challenging. And so, even like I just did a project with Optimisn where we had the Sunny Awards, and we have all of the projects on the Superchain submit their project, and then there's going to be a big awards show at the end of this, and we're giving out $540K in OP, so it's like a lot of money. And we have you must log in with the Warpcast account There's a bunch of reasons for that. One is that it's like some basic level of Sybil detection. Like there are a lot more filter some of the bots. The bots had to at least pay $5, you know. Um, their Optimism is really keen on your forecaster identity as like your root identity on chain, and so they want to issue attestations always against your forecaster ID. So this is why we did this. But even for a super chain wide effort led by Optimism, if you don't have a forecaster account, we send you a Warpcast to go make one. Right there's no like, okay, just create one here, right? Optimism was like, we will subsidize anyone, like we will pay the $5, but there really wasn't a way to do it. Now, all that's with the caveat that there is a way to do it. You can do it at the protocol level. You can do it with Nanar has tools now,
Yeah.
but someone just needs to create like the open source, like, yeah, just drop this one line of JavaScript in and we'll help you register an account. And it's like, oh, you want to subsidize the accounts? Put your money here. I think that is kind of another Lego block and I think this is, again, because my understanding is that this can be done. I think this is going to be like a community effort that someone just creates something really great that we all start to use.
I'm definitely tied up, but let's continue this that drum and beat it loud enough until other people join in, because I do think that has been my one sticking point, is that Farcaster and Warpcast are so synonymous that it actually shoots ourselves in the foot from like if you go to sign up for Farcaster, it's a Warpcast app. There's no other apps that are, and I get that we want to keep like the first class kind of experience, but like Wildcard, Supercast, like there are some ones that have kind of earned their stripes and have lots of stuff.
I'll just keep your eyes out for Kiosk if you guys haven't played with that yet. It's from the Mirror team. Okay. My God, it rivals Warpcast at like the polish, and it's a iOS native app, and it just feels really good, and it's differentiator that leans more into art and content, and so you see a lot more NFT stuff on it, and it has an embedded wallet actually in it, which you can like. It's just so easy to mint NFTs from the feed. It's pretty great. So anyway, when I saw Kiosk, that was the one where I was like, oh, it's on. Like this can happen. Like this is a very good app, you know.
Amazing. I just pulled it up in a tab, so I'll check it out after this. But
cool.
Even though we do a show that surfaces so much stuff, so much cool stuff is happening, and so it's always good to have another set of eyes kind of surfacing stuff to us. But yeah, I'm with you. I think having something that's like onboarding onto Farcaster that is agnostic, but even maybe ties in like the super or the smart wallets, so that someone that's not even on chain can jump on and use it and be a part 100%. Of it. Things like that. Like, use all the tools and let's make it frictionless. So that'd be super cool to see through.
So Chris, you talked obviously about kind of your guiding light and your North Star is focused around the future of work. And you've obviously been doing a lot to support creators just through energy and initiatives. Talk to us about the Scout game. Like, how is this kind of a part of that?
Yeah, cool. So the Scout game kind of evolved out of two efforts we were doing at Turnverse. One is just like having worked with a bunch of DAOs and grant programs and incubators, and then having run startups ourselves too. It's always like the best people, the best projects that can apply for your grants programs. They can often come from referrals and referrals when people have skin in the game. And so there are a bunch of actually grant programs, and certainly VCs are famous for having like a Scout program, where if you bring a project in and they receive funding, you maybe get a $10,000 bonus, right? And so some grant programs are run that way. Lots of VC firms run that way. Recruiters work, it's like, this is a well-known thing. Or you have social capital, right? Like if I'm recommending that you hire my friend because he's really great, I'm like putting my social capital on the line. It's valuable. If I didn't have if I didn't care about my social capital, I might just send lots of people to you. But because I have social capital, it's a really good filter. And so that, and then building kind of the next evolution of Charmverse, where we really love to connect builders and builder. I believe in like the Jesse definition of like we're all builders and we're all trying to build it here, and whether you're building it through media or software or art or culture, like we're all builders in this space. I like that terminology, but we're more focused on software developers and people who build software, and so as we were building the next iteration of things where we were connecting software developers with opportunities, and those opportunities being incubators, grants that might suit their needs. We wound up with this endorsement tab, and it was kind of like LinkedIn endorsements. And the notion is like, it's actually very helpful. It's actually very hard to be on the grants council side of things. I've run grants, I've worked in partnerships with them. You get a lot of stuff. You definitely don't want to, it's not a popularity contest. So it's not like, oh yeah, Bankless applied and we love the Bankless podcast, so there it is all based on merit. Um, but there's not a lot of signal, right? And particularly just this is a little bit of a tangent, like you don't actually know if someone applied for Polygon, got the grant, and then never delivered their milestone. Like there's no way to know that, right? I mean, there is, but you have to research all of the grant programs or talk to all of the people. Um, and so reputation was like a missing piece in a lot of these grants programs and these incubator programs. And so we're sort of like pulling all of that together. And then we're like, well, we want to do endorsements. But then you look at like LinkedIn endorsements and they're basically worthless and fake, right? And so then we started to have this little incentivized, inside this other app, we had this tab where we had like these incentivized endorsements. And the notion was like, oh, well, you buy someone's NFT to endorse them. And then if they win a grant, they you would receive a small portion of that grant for having endorsed someone, right? And so it's both like having monetary stake in the game because you just bought this NFT, and then having your social cred on the line. Then as we were iterating on that, became like a huge feature, and then we realized that was the app, and we just put everything else on hold and started to focus on like, wait, how do we incentivize developers and people to scout them in the open source world, which, I love closed software. We're venture backed. We love venture backed fundings. Termverse has been open source since day one. So, I love open source software as well. But we started thinking about like, how can we make being an open source developer a sustainable thing, a sustainable job, and a sustainable movement. And again, if we go back to like our notion of the future of work, and I think we largely think the future of work is the end of the firm, or at least the firm is very small, and we're all freelancers, and we come and go, and maybe you work for a couple of companies, or maybe you stick with one project for a long time. And so a lot of our inspiration from that comes from the open source community. And so it came time to think about like, how do we merge the great stuff that's happening in the open source community with the sort of crypto economics, just general mechanics and incentive systems, and build a product around that. And that became the Scout game. So let me give you that's a lot of jargon. So the TLDR here is ultimately we built the Scout game, which is like fantasy football for open source developers. And so if you are a Scout, we run in 3-month seasons. So if you're a Scout, you are buying the NFTs of open source developers. I'll just note, every developer builder in the system is opt-in. So they choose to opt in, they off their GitHub account, we know it's them, and then we follow their open source activities on GitHub. So as a Scout, you're building a team, and you do so via buying NFTs. And so you buy the NFTs of all of the builders you think are going to score well, or you want to support. And then as the builders themselves have successful pull requests merged in open source repos, they will earn points. And thus, like if you have them on your team, you earn points. And so it's a way to incentivize and reward the developers for contributing open source code. And then it's a way to support the people who are supporting them or identifying them. And so there's a lot of nuances into that, but that's kind of the TLDR. You can think about it as, one of the questions I get immediately is like, well, what about for us non-builders? And the two answers are like, well, one, we're all playing the Scout game, myself included. We're like on the Scout side of things. And I would love to play in the NFL, but I can't. So I have an NFL fantasy football team. So this is really more about like the open source developers are the players. We're the team owners. The second thing is in success. Absolutely, we want to bring this to other ways of working. Open source code is really great because we have GitHub as the source of truth, and we can monitor all of the repos and even your account, and we can see when things have been approved or when things have been rejected. And like an orthogonal way to think about the Scout game, or at least the protocol we're building, is we're kind of like this GitHub oracle, where it's like we are validating that this pull request is true, and then we're actually publishing an attestation for it. So we're putting that pull request success on chain, and then our whole our game uses those attestations to award points. The final thing I'll just add on top of that, because it's interesting and relevant, is ecosystems are responding really great to it. And so I think like it's fun for developers, it's fun for scouts, and then a lot of the ecosystems, like if you're an ecosystem, if you're an L2 or a protocol, you're trying to get people to build in your ecosystem. And so the tools you have today are grants, which are great. We love grants. It's very expensive. Um, it's almost like venture funding in the sense where like a lot of those grants don't pan out, but some of them do, right? Your other toolkit is hackathons, and hackathons are cool. There's good energy. They're fun at conferences. Hardly anything comes out of hackathons that's sustainable. Even the developers you get to play with your chain or your protocol, then move on and do other stuff. And so we're thinking the Scout game is something in between that, which is like sustainable ways to reward people for building in your ecosystem. And so a bunch of ecosystems are sponsoring specific repos, and there'll be token rewards on top of that. And so one can imagine, if you contribute to one of 100 Optimism repos, that you would get OP for it. And so that's kind of another way where we're trying to make sure that people doing open source work get rewarded. And then I'll just finally say, like, one of the challenges with open source is, it's just straight up a challenge to get paid to do open source work. You can build a company around it, and that's great. The market is the best. If your open source product makes money, that's great. The other option is you join one of the FANG companies, because you're a maintainer of a thing they really need, and they pay you to work on open source on your project, which is also great, except that then you're sort of at the whims of what the organization needs, and you could potentially be compromised, or maybe you're not doing things exactly how you would do them. And so we're trying to figure out, like, how do we reward people with points and tokens to make it so that they can make a living as an open source developer.
Yeah,
I feel like, Brock, you're chomping at the bit to ask a question on this.
Yeah, I don't know how long we have you though, but like I love ideas and building and things, so this is like sparking. So I could definitely see, even on the like designer side, looking at data from Figma or InVision potentially, because a lot of what they're doing now is like can be distilled into data, and so that would be interesting, because I think that then you can start to have Scout not only devs, but also Scout design talent, and then match make based on like all kinds of things. So really cool thing there, I think.
I'll say, like, one other idea there is Toby from the Yellow Collective had sort of said, like, DAOs like Purple and the Yellow Collective could be the arbiter of proof of work. And so it can be like, hey, I designed this product, and in some ways it can be hard to know what you did or what you didn't do. And so there can be third parties who are like, yeah, we're just a group of designers, and what we do is authenticate that people did the work. So that's sort of some interesting ways to think about that in the future.
Definitely.
Yeah, totally. If there's there used to be, I can't remember what the product was, but there used to be a way where you could like check in your design into GitHub. And like something like that would be great, because what's important to us, by the way, is like, okay, so my biggest concern, maybe, my two big concerns. One is that product builders, that no one uses your product, right? That's like, that's the existential concern. The second one is like, we absolutely do not want to encourage spam on repos. And so as we've seen, like kind of the incentivization of actions on Warpcast, we've seen it incentivize a lot of spam. And so like what we absolutely don't want to do is incentivize spam for repos, because like if you get like a bot commenting on your cast, it maybe takes like a half second of your day. If you read through someone's pull request and then realize that it was a bot or like it's just not good, like that could be a half hour of your time. And so so we are monitoring repos, and we have like a 3 strikes rule. And if you get rejected from your pull request, you get a strike, and so 3 rejected pull requests, and we're just going to suspend you from the game. And then there's an appeal process, and you can tell us what happened. And I just say that because then that also makes GitHub such a great place to have proof of work, because and then maybe a part I missed out was we are selecting the repos we're monitoring. These are qualified repos. So it's not like you just spin up your own repo and then you commit to it 100 times. It's like, no, these are like the 1,000 top repos in crypto. And then like, a couple of dozen of the smaller community repos that hang around Warpcast and Nouns, so that we can get our community involved. And so like, we can make it easier, because not everyone's going to be able to commit to Uniswap, but maybe people can submit to like, some open frames project or something like that. And so there'll be a bunch of qualified repos, and then you have to have your pull request merged in one of those repos to score points. And all of that, like there's just a strong truth there and a strong proof of work that makes it an easier place to start.
Yeah.
Please, you were jamming. I didn't mean to cut you off. You were jamming. I like jamming.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I think would be interesting would be like the governance or guidance side. So like you mentioned, like the FANG work, where over time, if you're hired in, it's great because you have security of income, but your work almost starts to get slanted one way. And so having somebody that's like an overseer, not necessarily for like code quality, but saying like, hey, some of this direction that we're going goes outside of making it for everyone, and you can start to like have people that are making suggestions and things like that. And if something goes too far slanted outside or it's ignored, flagging that of like, okay, it's open source, sure, but like this might need to get forked and kind of come back to center of something that's a tool for everyone. And so that almost having those, if you're sticking with the metaphor, like the referees, if you will, or something like that are keeping the game clean, could be interesting to see come in.
So Chris, you have a ton of signups already. Looking good. What's kind of your ideal timeline over the next
so we're running a 2-week wait list on Warpcast. I mean, we can talk about that too, because that's been pretty successful. Just the general strategy of what we did, and you sign up through a frame on Warpcast and all of that stuff. And we're approaching about 6,000 signups on day 3 here, which is good, not great, but good. We're pretty happy with it. Warpcast via the numbers at least has 50,000 monthly active users. So we seem to grab 10% of those, and who knows how many of those users are just who interact with things. And so we feel like we got a pretty good portion of it, but we're going to run this wait list for 2 weeks. We have a few more things up our sleeves to incentivize people to sign up. And then we're looking to launch this in the beginning of October. And so we're ready. Our team, we're playing with the app. It's on a staging server. We're just putting together the final touches and getting ready to launch in October.
Well, we would love it if once things are up and running, you come back and maybe we'll do a little share screen and understand a little deeper about what it is that you're doing. But
I would love that.
Thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for making time for us today. We really appreciate you. And just final call to action for anybody who's meeting you for the first time, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, well, go follow me on Warpcast if you don't already. And if you check out my last couple of days of casts, you'll see a lot about the Scout game. And so sign up and see what we're cooking. If you see this like a couple of days from now, you can follow at scoutgame.xyz, or we have a channel in Warpcast, scout-game. And so you can go find all the details there. And I appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, Chris. We appreciate you. And Brock, that is our show. We went way over, but hey,
we did it, but it was action packed, if you ask me. So.
We had a lot to catch up on. So, folks, thank you for tuning in. This is the Superchain Spotlight show as part of the Good News Show, and we will be back next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.
See you.